Hey, I'm Alex Mathler from Board Game Co., and this is a continuation of the random questions series of, well, questions. This is a series I started maybe a month and a half ago, I don't really know, but I've done 2 of them already. This is the 3rd one, and there will be more. This basically, in case you missed it, is basically a video series where I ask you a bunch of questions. I put a link to a Google form down below, in the description down below, and then you can go ahead and fill out your own answers to those questions so that we can go ahead and have an interesting conversation around what you all do, think, answer, all of that. The main issue we do have in terms of accuracy of data is this inherently has some degree of selection bias, as the people answering this question are mostly going to people who are heavily into board games, enough so that they watch board game videos from content creators, enough so that they fill out surveys about their board game interests from content creators, and that's the main degree of selection bias. So if you asked a whole bunch of people if Monopoly was their favorite game, you'd probably get the answer no, even though Monopoly can be very popular. So that's an interesting little thing there. Past that, we're going to go ahead and go through this. The way I structure these right now is I'm going to spend the first 20 minutes or so of this video going over your prior answers from the last time you went ahead and did this. And just kind of, for the most part, I try not to go into these with any real strong, I don't really look at these heavily before doing this on camera with you. I want to kind of have my reactions on the spot as much as possible. I see stuff, but I don't really heavily go into it. We'll go through those 5 questions from last time, or 6 questions I think there were last time. And at the end of it, we're going to go ahead and ask you the new questions. So if you just want to go ahead and fill out a form for the new questions, just go ahead and jump to that timestamp down below, so you can go ahead and jump to the end, or just go to the form directly. The only thing I'm going to do on the video itself that's different than the form is sometimes a question that might need some clarification, I might say extra stuff when reading the question, so that might be helpful in case something's not immediately clear to you. But with that, let's go ahead and dive into this. And also, please, thank you for participating. Thank you for, if you can go ahead and enter the questions to this new poll, if you can go ahead and share this with friends or Facebook groups or whatever. I don't usually ask people to share videos, but this is one where I kind of want to gather as much information as possible, which I guess I should give that last disclaimer. There is no nefarious purposes for any of this data whatsoever. I don't share this data with anyone outside. I mean, you see the data. Anyone who wants to watch my videos will see the answers, so it's all public in that sense, but past that, there's no ulterior motivation other than being interested in questions to answers. Oh, and the last thing is, please, by all means, put your suggestions down below for any questions you would like to see. For the most part, the first one is all my own questions. The subsequent videos so far have been a mix of my questions and then questions from the audience. So if you have questions where you're like, that would be a fun thing to ask, put it in the comments. It'll make its way into a video at it might make its way into a video at some point. And with that, let's go through these. We're going to go ahead and start off with the first question. How often do you play your favorite game every year? Literally, if you think about your number 1 game, that specific game, how often do you play that game? Oh, by the way, we have 381 answers to these questions. This one I thought was the most interesting thing is right now is we have 27.9% who played it 1 to 3. Okay, 27.9. We have 3.9% or 15 people play their favorite game 0 times in a year. Now, again, this is on average for a year, so I assume they played at some point, but like in the past year, perhaps they played it 0 times. 27.9% play it 1 to 3, 22.4% play it 4 to 6, 16.3% play it 7 to 10, and you get an increasing spiral, which is fascinating. The thing I thought was most interesting is the spiral perfectly lines up. Those numbers actually go in the exact order of the questions, which means it is a slowly decreasing scale. There's no inconsistency at all until you get to the final answers, which you can't really see them in these slices down here, but basically we have 2 people said they play it between 101 and 150 times, and then 3 people said they play it 150 plus times. So that's the only time the numbers shrunk and then got higher. Otherwise, it was just slowly decreasing. And by the way, I should have asked this, but if you are someone who plays your game 100 times or more, honestly, let's forget that. If you are any of the people, because 51 to 100 was another 15. So between that, there's a total of 20 people who play their favorite game every single year 20 times. No, there are 20 people who play their favorite game 50 times or more in a year, 51 times or more in a year. If you are those people, please comment down below with what that game is. I am so interested to find out, are you playing Twilight Imperium 50 times a year? Also, which bracket you put yourself in. Do you put yourself in 51 to 100 and you play Twilight Imperium? Or do you play your favorite game 150 times plus a year when you play Twilight Imperium? I'd love to know. So there's 20 of you out there. Would love to see it. And the fun thing is, I actually kind of think I might see close to 20 people commenting. Inherently, those of you who are here were the most engaged in this conversation. Then we have how many days per month on average are you playing your favorite game? This one is a trickier one. I did give the full spectrum of up to 31 to go over, which means you are going to see the numbers broken down by 31. So how many days per month on average are you playing a board game? Any board game at all. We have 1 person or 4 people, 1.1% put 0, and you can see a spectrum all the way around over here. You have 8, 10, you have 6 over there, you have 20 over here. So you have all these different numbers as far as where they are. There's no hard trend on this one. This one has a very opposite. it. Although again, because of the fact that I just gave an open-ended answer instead of a bracket, it does mean you could have a complete randomness. So what's the reason why basically no one said 9, but people did say, sorry, no one said, wait, what is that? That's 8, 10, 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I feel like these numbers are messed up as far as where they are. We have 0, 1, 2. I don't understand what this is. Did someone write 9.5? How is this broken out? Or is the answer... I'm trying to figure this out. If you look at the screen over here, we have 8, 9, 10, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. There's like a weird extra number here that I don't understand at all. Is there a way to see that? We have 9, and we have 1. What is this one? That's 8? I don't understand. 7? I don't know what's happening here. Something's broken on my numbering system. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that and figuring that one out. Anyways, outside of that, what do you value the most in a board game expansion? This is bracketed out as far as what people value the most. There are 5 different answers. There's a focus, change, or addition, a variety of expansion modules, addressing base game issues, expanded player count, and the last one was, I think there was the last one, expanded player count. Expanded player count. Why is there not another one? Was there another one? I thought there was another one. Maybe not. We have focus, variety. There are 5 different things. What is this one? A variety of expansion modules, a focus, change, addition mechanisms. We have addressing base game feedback, expanded player count, and more of the same type of content, enhanced variability. So to that end, in terms of the most people, in terms of first choice, the most popular answer was more of the same type of content, which I thought was interesting. If you're a board game publisher, you should pay attention to this one. Again, with the degree of selection bias at play, but you have 132 people choosing more of the same type of content. That's the main thing that they want in a board game expansion. And you can see over here, this still remains fairly popular. It's still the second most choice picked as well. So it's both the most choice and the second most choice in terms of like how much they are. And then it starts going down, it will inherently shrink. And like, down here, it's, obviously the lowest over here. Which is interesting. The least interesting thing is expanded player count. In general, I see a lot of publishers who are adding 5 to 6 players or whatever it is in expansion. And that seems to be the least requested thing by far. 274 people. Like, look at the size of that bar. The vast majority of people put all their answers for that down there. Now, again, keep in mind, you always have to factor in the fact that there is 13 people who want it as their first choice. They're going to have a larger gaming group. How do you cater to everyone or no one, or how do you deal with that? We also have addressing base game issues as a fairly large one. I'm kind of surprised by that. It makes sense. It's not the kind of thing you think about wanting, but like, if a base game has issues, I do want them fixed. For me, it's tricky because I find if a base game has issues, I usually don't keep it around long enough to deal with it, but we'll see how that plays out. Anyways, we have over here, addressing base game feedback again is pretty popular up here. And then we have a focus, change, addition mechanisms is pretty consistent across the board, pretty even, though they're down to the end, it shrinks compared to, well, the expanded player count. So again, no major surprises here. I think the main surprise for me is just how strong more of the same. I would have thought more people would want a focus, change, addition of mechanisms as opposed to more of the same type of content, but the more you know. If you have a physical game in Shrink, but you've played the game elsewhere, does it count as an unplayed game? Now, I actually read the answer when I was reading the questions off in the last video. I kind of read the question slightly wrong, but I did fix it in the question itself. But either way, if you have a physical game in Shrink, but you've played this game elsewhere, does it count as an unplayed game? So 30.7% said no, it does not count as an unplayed game. It's just a blanket no, which I'm surprised by because I felt, does it count as an unplayed game? No, yeah, I'm in the no camp. I have to think for a second. I'm strongly in the no camp to the point that I'm surprised it's only 30.7. I would have expected like 70% of the people to say, no, it's not unplayed. Like if I have, I don't know, pick a game. If I have Sentinels of the Multiverse, but I have played that game elsewhere, but I haven't played this copy and it's in Shrink, does it count as unplayed? I would never say no. I've played Sentinels of the Multiverse. Do you play your copy? No. But then it's an unplayed game. No, it isn't. I played it. But you haven't played your copy, so... Like, if you brought your copy over to my house and we played your copy, have I not... This is not an unplayed game? Now, granted, technically speaking, that copy is an unplayed game. But in terms of the way I think about it, it's so meaningless. Like, if I... Here's an interesting one. Another one I didn't even think of. If I got rid of Sentinels of the Multiverse, for some reason, I lost it, okay? If I have Sentinels of the Multiverse and I lost it, and I replaced it with a new copy, but it was in Shrink, is it an unplayed game? I still think no. Again, strict definition of what an unplayed game is, yes, but the way I think about it and compartmentalize it, no, it doesn't. So I'm surprised it's not that high. We have 30% saying, yes, it counts as an unplayed game, which, again, surprised it's that high. And then we have 40% in the middle who say, no if you played another physical copy, but an online play doesn't count. In other words, if I have Sentinels of the Multiverse, and I've never played it physically, I've only played it online, does that count as an unplayed game or not? And 40% say, no if you played another physical copy, so in other words, I played my friend's copy, then no, it's not an unplayed game. But if you played it online, buddy, you only played Feast Voted on BGA, your copy is considered unplayed. I find that fascinating. Not wrong, fascinating. Because I think differently. I find usually I've mostly aligned with how answers have come out here. There are occasional exceptions, like the people who play their favorite game 151 times a year. Which of the following channels have you heard of? This is more of an interesting awareness thing. I'm always curious about what the general awareness is. Like, honestly, I'm a little surprised. I thought there'd be at least one person, just statistical law of numbers, I thought there'd be one person who hadn't heard of the Dice Tower. I'm not surprised that there's not, but I guess the surprise would be that they haven't, but then I kind of expect to be a little bit surprised with a large enough pool of numbers. But either way, we have everyone over here, from the 381 people who answered the question, everyone heard of the Dice Tower. Almost no one heard of EasyCat. Now, by the way, I'll talk about the channels briefly over here, so we will have a little bit of a walk through the channels here. Dice Tower, you all know, I don't need to say anything. EasyCat is a popular, what's it called, book talk. He's a popular book talker or whatnot. He does TikToks around books, but he's very much got into the board game space. And so he has a 700,000 people in his audience on TikTok. I don't know, like 500,000 on Instagram, huge numbers. And then he started doing YouTube as well. He has like 20,000 subscribers there, something like that. I don't know the exact numbers, but he has very much added board games to what he covers and what he does. I find his content is very, very easy to watch, very entertaining. He's got a great sense of humor. It's not necessarily, everyone's going to find what they want in different creators, but very large creator, dwarfs the Dice Tower in terms of pure popularity, but obviously not in the board game space, hence the narrative selection bias. But either way, that's who EasyCat is. And I did, by the way, try to roughly number these in terms of popularity. I put Dice Tower before EasyCat because even though popularity of EasyCat's larger in a sense, how do you really measure that? Similarly, we have Danielle Standry. I'm shocked that not more of you know who Danielle is. Danielle does a ton of, again, TikTok and Instagram content, very often short form content. I don't think she does any long form content at this point, but very often just covering board game recommendations. If you want a bunch of board game recommendations, her content is very entertaining, very amusing, and she's all over the place nowadays. Like, I'm not surprised she's higher than EasyCat. I'm surprised both are that low, although I did expect them to be lower than Dice Tower. But again, Danielle Standry, she's like 300,000 people on TikTok or something like that. I don't know the exact numbers, but she's a very popular creator, lots of content out there. Then we have the Brothers Murph, and again, this is where we start to see there's clearly a YouTube bias in, well, you, which makes sense, you're on YouTube. The Brothers Murph, they obviously have a lot of stuff. Small selection people said no, only 44 said no, compared with 334 who said yes. We have One Stop Co-op Shop, same idea. Again, most of you know, I won't heavily go into it, but for those of you who don't, I guess Brothers Murph, they do great playthroughs, great overviews within their playthroughs. One Stop Co-op Shop has a large variety of content. I love his 5 and 5 reviews. I love his lookbacks on what actually made his way into his collection from games he covered 6 months ago. We have Grant's Game Rex. We have a large bar of people to go through over here. We have Grant. Can I slide this here? How do I do this? This is not sliding for me. There we go. Uh-oh. There we go. Grant's Game Rex over here. Basically, he's also, and again, interesting over here how much of a shift there is, because I would have thought he'd be in a similar place to Danielle, but Grant does board game YouTube, he does games coming to retail, and he also has TikTok and short-term content there. We have Tabletop Family. That's a very much an Instagram channel over there. I don't have as much interesting things to say about Instagram channels, nothing against them, they show pictures of board games, so I don't have as much to cover there. We have, why can't I get this bar to line up right? We have Tim Chun over here. Tim Chun is going to be, again, not surprised, he's kind of 50-50. There's some of the best edited content I've seen. He has a lot of board game trailers for companies, and he has great list videos, great reviews, or I think he has less reviews nowadays, more showcases, but overall fantastically well edited content. We have the King of Average over here, who I can't get this to line up. Why can't I get this to, let's go back there. There we go. King of Average, there we go. King of Average over here. Many of you have heard of him. He covers crowdfunding a lot, and he has very much, used to be a lot more into clickbait stuff, and to be fair, his content is still clickbait, but his thumbnails are still clickbait. His content is actually much better organized. Lots of warnings, lots of pro-consumer stuff. I would highly recommend, if you haven't given him a shot, or if you gave him a shot and didn't like his content, I do recommend checking it out nowadays. It's very much shifted. Again, I still don't like the thumbnails. Everything is the biggest thing ever. And the only reason I feel comfortable being critical of an aspect of a creator publicly is because I overall really value his content. I think he does a great job in the space. In fact, he's definitely one of the inspirations for me becoming a YouTuber to an extent. I was a hardcore, watched every single video of his like once upon a time. And so I very much am a big fan of his content, and the clickbait stuff I don't love, but the content behind the clickbait is good. And the reason I'm being so focused on that is if the clickbait has turned you off, I recommend trying to see past that and looking at the content. Neverboard Gaming, very much an Instagram channel. They have done YouTube as well, but they are much more of an Instagram channel. Board Game Hangover, they're great. You need to watch their stuff. Great reviews, great dynamic between the two of them, very entertaining. Geek and Pink's going to be a Instagram as well. I believe she's from Mexico. I think she was just at Mega XP, which is a big Mexican convention, but Geek and Pink. We have the Board Game Garden, which many of you have heard of, which makes sense. She's been, honestly, I'm surprised that many of you haven't. She's been on this show so often. I mean, the Board Game Garden, Jenna, she's great. We think of Themer, who again, similar space. I am surprised at that ratio. I would have thought more people would know Board Game Garden. Jenna's been on the show a lot more, but that's just interesting on its own. Frosted Meeple, similar spaces to Jenna. Well, they do a lot of top 10 lists, a lot of a lot of top 10 lists, a lot of Persian their collection stuff, lots of the games we bought. Very entertaining. I think they have the best banter from any like couple in the space as far as how they interact. Semi-co-op. They do cartoons. If you haven't heard of them, they do great stuff. They do cartoon animated stuff, basically. They draw board game, little panels of, board game content. And then we have Board Game Ramblings, fantastic channel. Room and Board, fantastic channel. That's Chris. Board Game Dave, another fantastic channel. I'm sorry, I'm towards the end of here. Board Game Buzz, fantastic channel. I am running out a little of being able to dive into each of these. Let's do it again. Board Game Ramblings, Johannes and Sinova, great couple, very engaging. They really cover a lot of board games. They talk about games coming and leaving. They very much have a trend towards Euro games. Very solid channel. Room and Board, Chris does, the last week of crowdfunding, as well as occasional deep dives into other things, or, review content, or even he does these matchups, or what do you call them, brackets of board games and whatnot. We have Board Game Dave. There's a lot of, he's very good vibe. He's got such an entertaining vibe. He's so passionate about board games, about the space in general. There's a real love for the hobby that comes through in his content. I highly recommend it. And then similarly, Carly from Board Game Buzz, similar idea. She's more Instagram. Her Instagram reels are fantastic. And then her channel, she does a lot of YouTube things as well. And again, covers a lot of board games, reviews, very well thought out. Overall, appreciate all that. And then over here, the last question is more like kind of breaking down to what extent you watch those. So no, I think I've watched a video of theirs. Yes, infrequently. Yes, frequently. It's the same channel, but have you watched their content? So over here, you can see a trend. Most people watch the Dice Tower pretty frequently. Obviously, Easy Cat and Danielle, if you haven't heard of them, you're not going to see a lot there. Brothers Murph is more of a mix. One Stop Co-op Shop, more of a mix. Grant's Game Rex, interesting. No to that one. High degree of no. High degree of no to Tabletop Family. Tim Shun, King of Average, Never Board Gaming, Board Game Hangover, Geek and Pink, Board Game Garden, and Thinker Themer, Frosted Meeple, Semi-Co-op, Board Game Ramblings, Room and Board, Board Game Dave, and Board Game Buzz. And I'm not really going to heavily dive into that one. That you can go ahead and check these out. And all these results are publicly viewable on the actual page. And that's kind of the breakdown over here. And with that, we're going to go ahead and dive into the new questions. Now, for the new questions here, I do my best to try not to bias you at all, which means I'm going to try to read the question. I'm not going to tell you my answer to these, but we'll just go through the questions. Starting off with number 1, do you sleeve your games? Answer 1, never. Only games where the cards get handled a lot. Only games I love where the cards get handled a lot, or always. Granted, there could be other caveats here. I did question whether to do more of a checkbox thing or a choose one. I did structure it as choose one. So again, the options are never, I don't sleeve our games, only games, and again, there could be never, sometimes, always. Choose the answer that most closely resonates with you. Never, only games where the cards get handled a lot, only games I love where the cards get handled a lot, always. Okay, those are the 5 main categories. And if you do mostly, if you sleeve 98% of your games, just say always. If you sleeve 2% of your games, just say never. So again, you can figure out which category you mostly lump into. What is your H-index? This is a numbered response. You can put any number you want. If you put 150, I will murder you because that seems completely unreasonable. But H-index is the number of times you've played a game that many times. So for example, if I've played Catan twice and Carcassonne twice, my H-index is at least 2. But if I've played Catan twice, Carcassonne twice, and chess 3 times, I still have an H-index of 2 because I've only played 2 games at least 2 times. I haven't played 3 games at least 3 times. To get an H-index of 3, I'd have to have played chess 3 times, Carcassonne 3 times, and Catan 3 times. And obviously more is fine too. So if I've played chess 100 times, Carcassonne 3 times, and Catan 3 times, I still have an H-index of 3. Now again, the larger you get, that means you've played that many games. So to have an H-index of 30, you have to have played 30 different games at least 30 times each. Okay, that's not easy. But let's see what your H-index is. Then from over here, we have where do you buy your games? And this is broken down into 6 categories. And again, this is a structured first choice answer, so you have to choose one for where you think you're most likely to buy your games in general. And there might be other categories, but these are the 6 main ones I thought of. We have local game stores. We have big box local stores. That's going to be things like Target or Walmart or Barnes & Nobles. We have online game stores, and we have Amazon. Now, I did try to figure out how to structure this down. Like, if you buy from Target online, which one is it? Honestly, answer whichever one you think most resonates with your choice. Because I tried to figure out how to differentiate this. Because like there's online game stores, which would be hobbyist game stores, Miniature Market, Game Nerds. And that's another question. Could you buy Miniature Market if you buy from Miniature Market in person, does it count as an online game store or a local game store? You decide for yourself how you want to categorize that. But again, categories are local game stores, big box local stores, online game stores, Amazon, crowdfunding, and used games. Those are the main categories I have. If there's another category, I'd be curious, like what did I miss? I'm probably not going to change the answer because once people start going through it, is what it is. But that's basically the options over there. So that's a tier choice. Choose the order you think you do yours. What's your preferred way of learning a game? learning the game from the rulebook, being taught in person by others, learning from video tutorials. So which one is your preference from those three? So learning the game from the rulebook, being taught in person by others, learning from video tutorials. And the last question, I have specific terms around how to ideally answer this to be the most useful, which is, what was your gateway game? Now for this one, I didn't want to do a multiple choice answer, Catan, Carcassonne, whatever it is. Rather, what I would request that you do is, for this one, if you could make sure to structure your answer the way Board Game Geek labels it. It will just make things a lot easier to be sure that the answers are all, well, the same. I might try to massage the data if I need to make sure that someone writes, if someone writes the Settlers of Catan and someone else who writes Catan, I might just merge those together. But effectively, if you could try to just copy and paste the BGG title into your answer, no extra spaces, just the name, that ensures we'll have consistency in the answers, because this is interesting. If we have right now, this is the second video, we had nearly 400 people answering this one. I assume the third video will have somewhere in that range, 300 to 400. There's usually a drop off, but I think the first video is always gonna have the most, and the drop off from there we'll see. But with like 400 people answering the question, I'm curious, what will the standout answers be, as far as will there be a bunch of things that were there? And I will say, in terms of your gateway game, if you have multiples, choose the one you think was the one that you most credit. So for example, in my case, I think, I'm not gonna say which ones they are, but if you watch my channel enough, you know, I have two specific games that I very much credit as the games that tipped me over, that got me into the hobby. In fact, should I go through my arc over here? Should I go through my arc? I'll go through my arc over here. I might bias you towards how you want to answer, but I'll let you answer however you want, but I'll explain the answer I would give. So I'll just tell you this one. So for me, I played Carcassonne, Catan, and Game of Thrones, the board game, way back before I really got into the hobby. But they weren't the games that really got me into the hobby. They were games I played for years, and they didn't push me into the hobby. And so for me, when I think of the gateway game, there were two games I played. I also played Arkham Horror once, whatever. But there were two games I played in a back-to-back period. I played Stone Age, and then I followed up Stone Age with Small World. And it was definitely right after playing Small World, like 2 months after playing Stone Age, I played Small World, and I was like, there's something out here. There's a hobby out here that I haven't known about. And I started looking into things. So to me, when I think of my singular gateway game, the game that tipped me into the hobby, my answer would be Small World. Because that is definitely, it was the 1-2 punch of Stone Age and Small World, following a little bit of a foundation of Catan, Carcassonne, and a few other games. And then definitely Small World was my gateway game of choice. So that's where we are. That is your 5 random questions video. Again, put your comments down below for more questions you want to see answers to. They will almost certainly make their way into here, because I usually do a combination of my own questions and your own. And until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I appreciate you being here, and as always, I hope you have a good one.